you write code in C, so it's completely C-based. So it's Eclipse-based, the IDE itself. So it's an M3 processor, and it uses a real-time operating system as well. FreeRTOS is what we prefer.
I'll pass around the mic if anyone has questions.
So all the sensors you talked about already there on my smartphone. Maybe my smartphone has more than that. So why do I need another box if I can just use my smartphone, or maybe older smartphone I can use that I'm not using at home, not using for anything else? I can just use that as a gateway instead of using your box. Get it?
So who's the question for? Is the question for me as well?
I don't know. Anybody?
You're talking about the XDK, right?
No, I'm talking about your box, right? The gateway. The box you have, that does security monitoring, and it has a bunch of sensors and everything else. And my smartphone already has all the sensors, maybe more than that.
Yeah, so the question's around this, leveraging the smartphone sensors already embedded, is that correct?
Yes.
Absolutely. So we do leverage the embedded SDKs from both Apple as well as Android to be able to determine what is the geo, leveraging the geofences, leveraging stuff on the phone. So both, we do have native apps for both, so we do have access to the full SDKs, which is actually part of our solution today. So happy to give you a demo of what we can do with that.
What I'm asking, why do I need a separate box? I already have everything on my phone, right?
Your phone travels with you, so...
No, I don't have. I can use my old phone. Mm-hmm. I can have an old phone that I'm not using. I can use that for that purpose.
You could do that. I'm not sure that would be, that's always a possibility, but our goal is to make it simple and easy out of the box, so you don't have to leverage the old phone. It's automated software, it's automated upgrades. We do leverage the automatic firmware updates, etc. So it's just about making it easy and automated, but happy to go deeper if you want to offline.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
We go you first, and then I'll get back to you guys.
How big is your average deal for your
Say that again?
How big is your average deal for your investment?
Yeah, so we typically write check sizes of 2 to 5 million on an initial investment for sort of an A and B round. For our seed investments, our check sizes are up to 500K.
So I have a strategy question for you guys, actually. So as entrepreneurs in this space, right, everybody and their brother are pitching their SDKs to us, including every Silicon Valley company in existence. Why should I, as an entrepreneur, bet on Bosch to dominate the part of the IoT that I'm looking at, as opposed to say, Google seems safe?
So I think one of the main advantages to at least looking at our cross-domain development kit is that it's not just a software development kit, it's not just a hardware kit, it's basically the combined package of the two. So you get to leverage years, decades of experience in the sensors that are not only in the box, but then also what you would be able to have access to potentially after you did a proof of concept and needed those products. And then additionally, we have a support layer behind that. So the community is robust with a fairly active base internally already. We have lots of partners that we're going to be launching with, and then also local support, US support. So it's, I think, the years of experience that we bring to the table, the ease out of the box to be able to do a proof of concept right away without needing to gather a lot of parts and pieces. So we make it really easy, I think easier than a lot of other competitors that would be in the space.
Yeah, I just want to add something quickly. If you remember the coffee example that I showed, we kind of installed a retrofit kind of solution right there. Most of the development kits that you're, I think, mentioning are kind of bare bones. They're not really packaged, and you can't really run a proof of concept for weeks or have an easy installation for something like that.
Hi. I'm going to ask you a question about the box that you sent around. I noticed that it goes only the rotational it does not do X, Y, Z if I move it in separate axis. Is that by design or is that because of the sensor that's in there? And also, can you share what's in the box?
Yes. So on the slide that I showed, I shared what's in the box. So there's there's sensors for 8 physical sensing parameters in the environment. None of them actually do like what you mentioned, position X, Y, and Z. But one thing that I didn't mention during when I had the slide up is that there's an extension bus included which breaks out the important pins from the unused and important pins from the microcontroller. So you can extend it with another device for, let's say, localization. I think that's what you were kind of referring to, and still have it, in that nice little package. I don't know if that answers your question, or do you want something more in depth? Okay, no problem. It's Silicon Labs ARM-based M3.
So Bosch has a broad product line. I think you mentioned something like 8,000 different sensors. You've mentioned that you have 10 in this kit. It seems like it might be nice to have an erector set sort of model where you have where different sensors, maybe a much broader set, maybe 1,000 different sorts of sensors might be able to be incorporated and used. For example, maybe a carbon monoxide tester or a natural gas tester or a sulfide tester. So different sorts of sensors from your product line that might be integrated then with a central box, probably at a much higher price point than it would be in an integrated solution, but it would be allowed perhaps for people to deploy them maybe to 10 or 20 different places and get some feedback about the general design concept, as opposed to just making one up in the lab and having engineers look at it. You could actually have potential user types see what they thought about it before the design get cranked down. So I guess the question comes back, have you thought about trying to bring in a larger set of sensors to make them easily accessible to developers?
Well, I think that's definitely the thought behind having the extension bus that I mentioned, where you can extend this XDK to interact with other sensors that aren't currently on board. It's a great point that you make, except all of those sensors can't fit in a small package, but it's great to have this extension bus now to integrate with other sensors like that.
So we saw the examples of coffee versus coffee being differentiated from a coffee machine. I presume that it's the same common sensor package that you were using for that. Why not incorporate a basic analytics package in your SDK or XDK so that out of all the data that is coming out, it could be analyzed for the data, typically some time series pattern, and people can just slap the names that they care in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it comes down to, okay, the question was why not include, I think what you're saying, a demo application with the XDK that kind of can recognize body sound patterns, kind of what we did in the coffee example. So two things. First, I think you asked what sensor was used, and it was an accelerometer for body sound patterns.
It was not this package.
It was from there, yeah. And so the other part of your question, why not include it kind of there, in the workbench? I think it comes down to the support that people the software that people develop is sort of their own to keep. And so I don't know necessarily if we'd want to publish that it could be up to the user to publish it, who designed, for example, that solution. He was a user within Bosch, but it's sort of up to him now to provide that to the community or not. I don't think it's within our power to kind of provide others software from. Okay, great.
I had a question about the business model, specifically for industrial IoT, which is perhaps the largest opportunity within IoT. One of the presenters talked about monetizing the data as being key, but in reality, that's a real need, and I know at least a few startups that have been working in that space, and it's difficult to do because And the customer says, you come and install your equipment, I'll pay for the equipment, put up your software, but then I'm not going to pay for data coming off my systems. So how do you address that issue? Because in theory, it makes sense, but in reality, it's difficult to implement.
And it's not necessarily that we're monetizing the data, it's our customers. So case in point, worked on making hydraulic hoses wireless so they can I don't know if you know anything about hydraulics, but it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when the hoses go bad. It's a huge problem. So worked on a solution with a hydraulic hose manufacturer. They make 300 miles of hydraulic hoses a day. And we developed little sensors to go on the hoses that measures electrical impedance on the hose. And when the impedance change, we know that the hose is going to blow. And so who is the important factor, and that's kind of an industrial internet type of solution, who's going to benefit from that data? So our customer is leveraging that data and not necessarily selling it, but providing the data as a service to the distributors of the hydraulic hoses. And the hydraulic hose distributors sign up for this service so they can tell that customer needs their hose replaced because it's going to break, and it's not necessarily about monopolizing the data. It's providing that data in a form that will benefit others. So, in this case, hydraulic hose distributors sign up for a service. The company gets the additional revenue stream, providing a value-added service for their distribution channel. So I don't know if that answered your question. It's not just about selling that data. It's about what value can I provide that's going to bring more revenue inside my organization.
The holy grail is for me as an entrepreneur to be able to keep monetizing that data, but you're saying that the customer could do that, and I can have a separate arrangement with the customer.
That's correct. And then there's business models in software. So one of the reasons why OnStar turned this into, who's going to pay for that data? So there's things inside of software that we've developed that we have dual billing or triple billing. So it's a little bit sliced, and you get the big thing, but you're able to sell that. And it's healthcare is another big example where the healthcare companies are selling their data. It's not individualized, so the company who's receiving the data doesn't know exactly who it's from. It's more of a holistic approach and demographic, geographical type sale of the data. And everybody's doing it. I'm not saying it's right, but it's one way to add additional revenue streams for your organization. And as long as you disclose it, like we may aggregate this data and reuse this to either make your product more efficient, provide extra services for your product. As long as you disclose it, it shouldn't be a problem.
All right, everyone else, if you have a question, raise your hand. I will come by so that everyone else can hear the question.
All right, I got the mic. I gotta ask the question. You will get it.
Come by. There's a couple people in front of you, but we'll come by.
I just quickly like to add this regarding your XDK. The TI sensor tag that supports JavaScript. You can program and verify in the JavaScript. So the hacker's world is more towards JavaScript. So don't be my request. If you could do that, that would be, even I myself would consider using that because I'm already using the TA. I don't want to get into the C. JavaScript is very popular among the hackers, so consider that. Thanks.
I just want to say thanks for that comment. It's good for us to know that. That's the main difference in the TI sensor tag in our kit, basically.
Hi. My name is Anush. First of all, thank you for presenting. I have a question regarding investment. So you had mentioned that you have successfully funded like 9 out of 11 companies this year, right? My question was, where can I apply? Because time's running out, right?
Well, so I'm here. So the reason I'm here is I'm looking to meet with interesting companies with interesting both technologies as well as business models. So, obviously, we have a website, rbvc.com. Through Plug and Play, you can use those guys as a way to get to us. We're obviously here because we want to interact with you guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I think a lot of people have asked this already, but so something on the lines of who are the competitors of, if I'm a developer or entrepreneur, as to why I would go with XDK. And so if you can just mention a few other who, your competitors out there, plus maybe your advantage to it. I think you answered to it already to some extent. Part 2 of the question is this free or is there a cost associated with the XDK? And then part 3 is there, what's kind of the business model in terms of Bosch trying to enable developers and entrepreneurs instead of going to solve those vertical problems yourself, which you apparently are doing. But how does it help unless your XDK is not free?
So in terms of the competitive landscape, I mean, I think everybody in the room is familiar with Raspberry Pi, Arduino. There's lots of different products that are for developers, and there's software SDKs that are available out there. So, I mean, I think those two, unless you think of any other ones, I mean, those are TI sensor tag. I mean, there's a few of them that are kind of in the space and similar to what we do. And again, I think a big part of where we shine is when you buy the XDK, it is just a one-time cost. So we anticipate the price to consumer being maybe somewhere in the 185 range. And so when you buy that package, you have now access to really well-designed, simple hardware that gives you all of these different sensing parameters, wireless connectivity right out of the box, so Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. I don't need any add-on modules for that. There's an SD card slot. So there's all these features in the hardware itself, but then on top of that, you have a rich community and lots of different APIs and development layers where you could start doing the development right out of the box. So there's no additional fees for any of that. And then on top of that, we're partnering with Software Innovations now to also offer back-end support, so cloud services, data visualization, all free of charge to our customers. So really, I mean, our business model and what we're hoping to achieve out of this is, let's say you come up with a really interesting product or a use case, and you do a lot of development on your own time, and then you come back to Seth and I and our team and say, look, we've done this proof of concept, it's a really innovative design. We'd like to industrialize and productize this. We know that you're experts in this field. We know that you manufacture billions of MEMS sensors and you have a vast network. So the upside is also you can come back to Bosch for additional support for productization. So maybe ask the other questions because I didn't quite understand the other ones. It's a rough cost. I mean, the way we look to bring this product to market is through traditional distributor business models. So we're engaging several distributors who would also carry competitive products as well. Bosch Sensor Tech, who supplies all of the MEMS sensors, is a group that will be utilizing their distributors as well. So you'd be able to buy it just like any other product in the market. Yep.
Next question. I'm wondering about modular versus the complete solutions. So a lot of the products that come with complete, like for example, your Bosch tag that comes with it's just a prototype tool, but in like watch, if you take a watch, it has a lot of sensors, it's all inbuilt. If I want to expand to add another sensor, I want to have a modular watch kind of thing. So I'm wondering, any one of you can talk about the difference in the business strategy. What would be the best thing, modular versus the complete product, and then if at least have you ever seen a modular product that is in the market in any industry? Thank you.
I have seen some products on the market that are modular. I think you're talking about where, for example, the humidity sensor and the temperature sensor would be different parts that you can kind of put around the room. Is that what you mean? So you can sort of...
If I want to add another sensor, I should be able to add as many sensors as.
Yeah, so I have seen a product similar to that, and I think it came down to a choice of what we thought was best to help us test product ideas within Bosch, and that's what we think would help other companies looking for an IoT solution. Typically, you just, with these sensors, I think you have most of the opportunities that you need, and the extension bus to kind of add a couple other sensors. It's a good point that you make about modular, but that just wasn't really something that we envisioned when we started this product.
Nick, and I think it was also the ease out of the box. So on that, I don't have to piece together the parts and pieces that I need. So if I have a project that just requires temperature and humidity sensing, I can basically decommission the other sensing parameters and just have access to those too. So I do this one scenario, but then I have a different application that I need an accelerometer and, say, pressure sensor, and then an acoustic sensor. So I could switch from one application to the next without having to add or take away anything. So we look at it as more of an ease of use factor, and then something that can apply to a wide range of different applications.
I have a question that actually I'd like to get all of your perspectives on. You have a very diverse team up there, and you'll have a little bit of insight on this. There's a lot of hype when it comes to the Internet of Things. Are we in an Internet of Things bubble? That's a yes or no question. And then you can tack on there some comments as to where you think folks can focus in order to not contribute to the bubble and to actually find real value in the Internet of Things. So down the line, yes, no, and then your comments.
Just to comment on the Internet of Things bubble, I don't think we're in something new now. I think it's always been there, but just under a different name. That's one thing that's probably most people know about. But I think a big hurdle that everyone's facing is the large power constraints for real Internet of Things, for things to be really on the internet autonomously. Very low power radios are required, and we're kind of at the, I think, we're kind of about to kind of cross this boundary, I think, to delve into more low power devices. That's my personal opinion on where we're at now.
Do I think we're in a bubble? No. Like Seth said, IoT, the Internet of Things, this concept has been around for decades. Since George Jetson was on TV, there was this idea of the smart home. You walk in, and I come from like a smart home background. It's my competency. And so, there was this idea years and years ago where you come in and it recognizes who's home, and then the toaster oven turns on and the lights turn on. So it's not a new concept. I think what we're seeing happening, the market's extremely fragmented. There's a lot of different ways to program. There's lots of different ecosystems. So specifically from a smart home perspective, the general consumer, I think they're hesitant. And I think the prices are still a little bit high for the average consumer, not the early adopter, but the average consumer to take advantage of a lot of technology that's out there. So no, I don't think we're in a bubble, but I also think, as Seth said, there's a lot of innovation happening, and I think we're getting closer to actually realizing some of these IoT concepts that we talk about.
Yeah, I think I would agree with everybody in terms of, this has been going on a long time, and now we've got a name that is rallying the industry around it and getting people excited. So if you think excitement equates to bubble, maybe there's a lot more excitement. But I do think that connectivity is happening, regardless of what we call it. In terms of what we see from an investment side, there are a lot of companies that are, doing the same sorts of things, and sometimes, from that perspective, there's a lot of noise, and it's very hard sometimes for investors like ourselves to figure out where really people are differentiated. Having said that, I do think there are some key problems that need to be addressed. One of them, I was talking to somebody earlier, Internet of Things means, security is an issue. So there's a problem where we're looking for solutions. Internet of Things means, okay, simplicity. How do you make it simple enough for people to actually use? So I think there's still a lot of problems to make things happen. But where I see the problem in terms of a bubble is that there's a lot of people, doing the same sorts of things, and it's sometimes hard to, see where the unique differentiations are.
So in terms of whether it's a bubble, I think we'll know when it bursts. But I think we should just keep it very simple. If there is a customer who has a problem, you can see the problem, you can define how you would solve it, and define a success criteria to measure once you have solved it. If there is some kind of a financial impact on costs or revenue for the customer, and then they will be willing to buy your product. And whether this and hundreds of such projects together are called Internet of Things, who cares? So when we try to do our projects, of course, big data is a very big hype right now as well. So there are companies selling infrastructures and other things, and there are others just buying it off and then trying to figure out what to do with it. We take a very different approach. We go and talk to the customers, identify a problem, try to solve it, measure all of our projects, and as long as that happens, they continue to pay us for that.
Bubble, though, cheaper, yes. So solutions have just become a lot cheaper, and therefore there's going to be more of them. And I'll give you a case in point. There was a company in our office the other day, and they had this device, this sensor technology that measured a bicycle. They were measuring the rotations, the deflection, and the shocks, and it was a relatively cheap solution. They thought it was so cool, and I'm like, I did that in 2003. But, and we did it for a company called Trek Bicycles. They wanted a remote data acquisition system, so when they put their bikes out in the field, they could measure things, and we use this big brick of data acquisition. We hardwired a cellular USB modem that they had back in 2003, and we took that apart, we wired it in, and we created the solution for Trek. So it was a little disheartening for someone to say, isn't this cool? I'm like, yeah, we were doing that a long time ago. But that brick cost $2,000. And now with connected devices over there, with their sensor technology, things have just become so cheap and cost effective. And the carriers, the cellular carriers these days, they're driving this thing because machine to machine or Internet of Things technology is just noise to them. So as many devices they can light up, they will. And they're making it very cost effective. I've seen cell phone plans down to 5 cents a month. Just to connect, flinging a few K to say, hey, I'm okay today, and then they put it down. So carriers are driving a lot of the Internet of Things. Technology's driving it. Cost is driving it, and just the like I said earlier, just the value add of seeing the data. We see it in our organization. We're always mining for data in our organization. Now we're mining for data in our products, and we're making better products because of them. So bubble, nope, but it's just become so damn cost effective these days.
Okay, I have the talking stick. Okay, two thoughts for you. One is your HDK. There was just released by, I think, E-Times, EDN, said that on microprocessor development, which primarily is for IoT, that something like 30% of the products developed have no security at all. And I noticed in your HDK, I may have fallen asleep on it, but I noticed in the slide you put up, there wasn't any talk about security on the HDK product. That's one issue. Second issue is, it's great that we're going to put all these devices, your thing where you put the little sensor on the hydraulic pipe or whatever, but all these things consume power, and they talk to other things, which means that they're in a state, on-off state, constantly. how are you going to get power consumption to the point that makes sense with all these sensors? Because as we put more sensors on, we have awake and sleep states in these things, and then we also have a huge security problem. And most security issues are going to be at the lowest common denominator. We're going to attack at the simplest thing, at your hydraulic hose level, not at the, upper level, probably. So security and power consumption, I guess.
I just want to comment on the power side, and then I'll let Seth maybe answer a little bit on security. I mean, we see that. I mean, it's a huge issue. In fact, I mean, our XDK just died being passed around. I mean, it's streaming data back and forth without any sort of choke point or limit on it. So, I mean, we can overcome some of that in the programming itself, but you start to see, I mean, we think IoT, we think wireless. We think small, but in most commercial or industrial applications, and especially when you have a lot of sensors, it becomes a major challenge not only to try and keep them alive for more than a couple of years, but then to have to change the batteries. And I mean, it's a major issue that we're looking into. So you look at technology like energy harvesting, solar. You look at a couple different ways to try to keep sensors running longer, but a lot of it has to do with the algorithm development. And Bosch is experts. I mean, we have an A team in Germany doing tons of embedded work where we can get 8 to 9 years of battery life out of a fairly complex solution. So we're getting better at it, but we're also seeing applications where the sensor is powered by an external source just for the reliability factor.
Just to add about data security, I think being a German company, of course, we're very sensitive to that topic, and we put a lot of thought into it. But the XDK, for example, is meant to be just kind of a proof of concept with no more than a few deployments per proof of concept. So I think it doesn't matter as much in this case, as opposed to, let's say, a final product that you want to design and a final product that Bosch designs for specific use that is deployed in the thousands. But we do on the XDK use the standard Bluetooth low energy encryption. It's definitely not foolproof, but there's a little bit of security even on the XDK.
Just one more point to that, we are definitely looking into how to make these devices, whether it's through the coding embedded or the hardware itself, more secure. So it is something that we're looking into, and you're not the first person to comment or ask a question on it, so it's on our radar.
Just a general comment. Bosch has great engineers and great solutions, but we don't have all the answers either. And I think that's part of the reason why we're here. It's part of a dialogue we're trying to have with the community, with other folks externally. We're looking for new use cases, new solutions, new ways to solve these problems. So it's not like we have all the solutions here. I think one other thing, I think we're kind of getting late on time too, so maybe we'll just take a couple of more questions, and then after that you can maybe come up and ask these gentlemen individually.
Yeah, just to touch on the security side, we've made strategic investments in embedded security companies, and that have, when you talk about over-the-air updates for cars, huge thing for embedded. So we're actually, and this is Bosch internally saying this, but we're 2 years ahead of every other car OEM manufacturer, part manufacturer, as far as security is concerned, and we can carry that over into the embedded connected devices as well, but we've addressed it.
I have a question. It's related to home automation at Bosch. Can you comment on your offerings today and the priority of home automation at Bosch, and give me some insight as to how that might evolve over the next 2 years or so?
So there's two different ways of looking at it. So at least our division itself, the one that you're talking with today, our business model is really B2B, so it's unlikely from, let's say, an ambient-like sensor or a door window sensor, it's unlikely that you would see it branded as Bosch in the marketplace. It would be whether it's white label or it would be through a partnership with maybe a smart home platform. However, the greater Bosch, the bigger Bosch, is looking at smart home. I mean, most things start in Europe and then will make their way to the US, but it's definitely a very, very high priority. We have a division within Bosch called Bosch Security Tech, and so security is a big piece of that home automation platform, so they're starting to look at developing more residential related systems. But once we wrap up today, maybe come find me and we could talk a little bit offline about that.
Thank you.
And one more question, and then
Yes.
we'll meet.
Yeah, I understand you have your outfit in Palo Alto. How big is your outfit and what kind of resources you have in your Palo Alto office?
So we have a couple of 100 people here right now, and primarily it was set up as a research and technology center. So we work very closely with Stanford University, work on different topics such as robotics, autonomous driving, MEMS technology, wireless, big data analytics, and so on. And so yeah, so it is a lot about innovation, and we do a lot of advanced engineering in this office as well, and bring new ideas from the Bay Area, from the Silicon Valleys, from the companies like here into the organization. So that is a primary reason why we are here.
All right, thank you guys so much. Another round of applause for Bosch, everybody.